Today is a great day for grammar lessons, so I recommend that you pull out your paper and pencil because this is something that you want to remember and memorize, or if you don't want to take notes, you can just watch it over and over again. But this is so important that you understand what's going on here. We're going to focus on our silent E's today, and we are going to focus on our prefixes and our suffixes. Now, when you're adding on a suffix, that's when they show that most of our spelling errors happen, is when you're adding on a suffix. So you have to know your spelling rules. You don't have as many problems when you're adding on your prefixes, but sometimes you do because when you're trying to understand when there's doubles. So we're gonna go into that and understand what we're doing here. So first off, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna focus on our prefixes. I didn't give you all the prefixes, obviously, because there's quite a few of them, but we're gonna just focus on these because I think this is plenty to learn. Okay, so first off, we're gonna start with in. Now, in means not or into. So we have, like for instance, involve. See how that's into volve, or incomplete, not complete. So that one means not. Or we have insignificant, not significant. Or invent, now that one's into the vent, right? Let's look into miss, M-I-S. It's very important that you study these and you memorize how to spell them, because let's say you want misspell. So, but sometimes you think, oh, M-I-S-S, right? Well, this is a completely different word. This means a woman that's not married. But see, look at this. So some people are thinking, well, do I need the double S? You do, because with prefixes, you just add them on. You don't have a spelling rule. You just need to make sure you know how to spell each prefix. If you know how to spell your base word, adding on the prefix is easy. So you have one S for the prefix and one S for the base word. And you will have lots of letters where you're gonna have your doubles like this. And that will be the same with in and sub, whatever, all of these. But if you have one N for your prefix and one N for your base word. So miss means wrong. Or we could say, for instance, it's spelled wrong, right? Or we have, for instance, misremembering, misknowing. It's knowing that it's wrong. How about misseats? You're being seated in the wrong seat, misseats. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at sub. Sub means smaller or below. So if you have a small subcompact car, you have a small compact car, but then there's a car that's right below that. We also have submerge. So you've heard of submerging them in water, but submerge could also mean that you're submerged in your homework, you're submerged in your cooking, it's like falling over you. Okay, you're really tackling it. Also, a submissive, subway. Now, I always have a keyword that I really connect with something. So subway is my keyword to remember. Oh, what is sub? Well, the subway is below a city, right? Also submarine, I also remember that because that takes a marine below water, right? Okay, so now let's look at re. Re means again. Okay, so, or actually it could mean back. So we could do redo or reassemble. You're assembling it again. Recalculate, rebuy, reread. You're reading the Bible again so you can learn more about God. Re-enter. So that one could be back. You're going back into the water park because you went out to get lunch. Anyways, how about rebuild? Okay, so somebody broke apart your Lego and now you're rebuilding it because your brother broke it. Okay, so now we have pre which means before, like a prefix, and I always look at that. So the prefix comes before the base word. We have a premix or a prejudice, and you can't hear the pre on that. It's prejudice, so you're prejudging somebody before you actually really know them. Up means a direction. So for instance, upstairs or upheld or uphold. That means you're upholding, let's say you're upholding the law. So you're making things so the government can be held up because you are a law-abiding citizen. All right, so now let's look at im. So im and ear, IR as a prefix says ear. Okay, when it's as a vowel R, and this is a vowel R, but it still says ear when it's a prefix. Okay, so it doesn't say here. Now these both say not, but this one is only not. This one is the same as in, which it could mean into. But im, you only do this with B's, M's, and P's. So let's, for instance, the base word has to start with a B, M, or a P. And then this one is with most of the other base words, but this one you start out with the base word having an R. Okay, so let's look at some words right here. For instance, so let's do import. So we have import. Okay, so this one means to port means to carry, and so it means into on this one. Okay, so see how that's a P? Now let's look at imbalance. Okay, so imbalance. See how that's a B right there. Okay, or we can have immobile. Okay, immobile. Okay, see, double M's. You can hear both of these M's, but sometimes you can't hear the double on that. Immo, okay, immobile. All right, so now let's look at ear reduction. Now look at this. You can have a prefix onto a prefix. Now you have IR. Okay, so with the IR, now sometimes you're going to have a prefix on top of a prefix. So for instance, we're going to have ear reduction. See how it says ear, re. Okay, now this is your Latin root, duct. Look, your prefix, and then look, another prefix. So look, IR, one R for this prefix, one R for this prefix. So it's doubled. So the same thing when you think of irresponsible. Okay, so now let's go ahead and micro. Now, I'm gonna reiterate how important it is to spell these words, but micro is super easy to spell. You can hear it, micro. So, I. So it's open. So you know that's gonna be just an open eye, right? And then croak, or O. It's exactly how it sounds. So those are both open syllables. You do it with an O, okay? So for instance, microfilm. Now when I was really young, well, actually it happened really in my 30s when we had digitals, but we always took our pictures, went and had them processed, and we had little tiny pictures on this microfilm, and you stored them that way, and that's how you took care of your pictures. But now we have microcurries, microcytes. Microcytes are little teeny tiny blood cells that tells you that you probably have maybe an iron deficiency. So then we have co, which means with. Okay, so sometimes you have prefixes that have a hyphen. Okay, so co-believer actually has a hyphen in there, but sometimes you don't. And some prefixes like self has a hyphen, so you just need to be careful sometimes, but most of the time they don't have hyphens. All right, so co-chair. Now look at this word. This says collect. Now a lot of kids think right there is your prefix, but it's not. Here's your root, And this is actually your prefix, C-O-L. That is a chameleon. Now, a chameleon prefix is from the Orton-Gillingham study, where he is the one that put these together, and it really actually helps you a lot with your roots. And when I say root, though, and the root, you typically hear that when you're connected to a Latin root, but then the base word is typically when you hear it for the English language, but it doesn't really matter. You have to follow the rules, whether it's Latin root or whether it's just your basic base word, okay? All right, so now we're gonna focus on our suffixes, and all of these right here are your vowel suffixes. Now, I did keep your plurals together, which we have one consonant suffix and one vowel suffix. Now, the S and the ES, they both mean plural, and it's really important that you understand the meaning. So I wrote down in brown what your prefixes are, but then I wrote the blue right above it, I wrote what the meaning is, so you don't get it all jumbled together. Now, we have ing. That typically, a lot of people just recognize that as the present tense, but it's not always the present tense. It is, if you see an ing, it's progressive, but it can stand in the present, but we'll go over that extensively in another lesson. So we also have past, that's sitting in the perfect, where you have your ed. So we want to add on their suffixes. So I chose some words that you don't have your regular suffix put on, because I think it's really important that you practice putting these on correctly. You drop the E and add on your vowel suffix, okay? You should think that in your mind. But if you practice with lots of words, you can tell, okay, did they do that right? Now, if you're a parent watching your student, you should always go and have your work checked. Did you add on that suffix correctly? So if you're making a nonsense word, then you're able to check that a little bit better than if a child can just break it off. If they know a common word quickly, they can just spell it out. But if they don't really have a common word and you're just practicing adding on your suffixes, it's really helpful to make nonsense words with them. Okay, so, and we won't do that with all of them, but we will practice that a little bit. So now look, we're gonna say this word is charge, okay? So now we're gonna add, I teach it both ways. You either can drop your E and add on your ES, or you can just add the S on, whichever way. You should teach it both ways, because some people like it one way, they can remember it better one way, or they like it the other way. So here you can, anything that it has an E, you can obviously just add your your S on, or you could just add your D on, or your R on, right? But when you have another vowel suffix, then you have to be more careful. So that's why I say, just drop your E and add your vowel suffix, or if it's an E, go ahead and add on the other letter. Okay, so we could just add on our S. Charges, right? Now we're gonna drop our E. Well, that was an E, we're gonna drop it, because now we're gonna add ing, right? That says charging. So now we have our E, charge. See, remember, the E's there to keep that saying J. Now we have drop the E and add ED, okay? So, or you can just add on your D. However, whatever makes you remember it is the most important. Okay, so now let's look at ice. We're gonna drop the E and add our ing. Icing, right? Or we have our E, we're gonna drop the E and add ed, or you just add your D on. Okay, voting, drop the E and add your ing, okay? Or you have vote again, or you can just add your D on, or drop the E and add your vowel suffix. Okay, now it doesn't really matter with a multi-syllable word. So I made sure I put multi-syllable words. You still drop the E and add your suffix, your vowel suffix. It's important, vowel suffix. Okay, now it does matter with the doubling rule in multi-syllable words, and we'll do that in another lesson. So we're gonna drop the E and add ED, or just add your D on. So now we have our E right there. We're gonna drop the E and add ing, okay? Drop the E and add ing. Issuing, concreting. Okay, so now we have itty, which means being, as in humidity, it's being humid, right? So we're going to add this on, let's practice. Drop the E and add your vowel suffix, okay? Issuity, right? So practice even saying it because the accents change and the sounds change. Now I'll also put up here a number. Most of the time you will not see, I'm sure there's probably an exception that I haven't seen, but you don't add suffixes onto numbers. So this is a great word to practice with your adding your suffixes on. Drop the E and add your vowel suffix. Ninety, okay? Ninety. They're hard to say, but it's fun to work with. How about let's go wifety. Vote-ity. Drop the E and add your vowel suffix. Now, let's go back to wife. Wife, it's a noun. And you do add suffixes onto nouns, but most of the time you see the suffixes added onto verbs, okay? But for instance, you have lots of your plurals go on to nouns. Are super easy to add your plurals onto nouns, but you have to be careful with your verbs, adding on your plural S's with your verbs, because when you add a plural S onto a verb and you're putting it together and matching up your subject and your predicate together, your simple subject and your simple predicate together, you have to have it in third person, sitting in the simple present position, and it has to be singular. And so that can be super confusing. Adding on a plural, nouns, no problem, but be careful. And we'll go into this extensively, but be careful when you're adding on your plural S's with your verbs. So now we have eyes. It caused to be like customize. You're customizing your product. Custom is your base word. Now we have able or able. Ibble. It's able is actually a word, and as when you're having it as a suffix, you will have it will say able. Okay, so now we're going to look at this. We're going to say pleaseable, and we're going to practice. We're going to drop our E and we're going to add A-B-L-E, right? Now you have to be really careful. Which one is it going to be? Is it going to be A-B-L-E or is it going to be I-B-L-E? And oftentimes you can hear it, but oftentimes you can't hear it, okay? So, accessible. So I put this up here so you can hear it, okay? Even though it's not a silent E, we're just going to add it on, okay? Accessible. Now look at this one, introducible. We're going to drop our E and add B-L-E, okay? Now this is the correct spelling on able. This is the correct spelling, but we're going to practice our silent E's, okay? So we're going to take that off. We're going to put our E back on. This is introduce. Now we're going to practice adding on able. Okay, so we're going to drop our E and add A-B-L-E. But let's read it. Introducible. Uh-oh, what just happened? We just took the C away from, the E away from the C. That E was making that C say S. And so we can only have an E, I, or a Y. So that would have been fine to put on. The ES would have been fine, but an A or an O, this matters. So is what we do, gonna put our C back on, and we are going to keep the E and we're gonna add our A-B-L-E. See how that works? Okay, introducible. Now we know that this is not spelled right, but we're not working on that. We're working on making sure we're adding on these correctly. So same things here, look. Same thing with the G's. The G's and the C's, you have to be really careful. Okay, we're gonna drop the E and we're gonna add A-B-L-E. Well, it says chargable. Chargable, well, that we don't want chargable because that's not an E-I or a Y. So this is how you would do it. You would not drop your E here, okay? And you just add A-B-L-E onto that. Chargeable. Okay, let's see if what we're gonna do. That's the correct spelling of that, but we're gonna practice our I-B-L-E. So we have our E. Oh, I-B-L-E, we're going to drop it. Chargeable. So see how it's still, it will still say charge with that one. So just practice with, and make some nonsense words and make sure that you are understanding when to drop the E and when not to drop the E. Most of the time you drop the E, okay? But it's very important that you're careful with that. Now we have E-R, A-R, and O-R all mean the same thing, a person, thing, or they compare to things, okay? So now we have a voter. Drop the E and add your R or ER, however you want to teach it. Here we can just add our R, right? But what if now we've decided, okay, now we're practicing adding on our AR. Well, drop the E and add on your AR, okay? Or drop the E and add on your OR. Okay, now look at this. Drop the E and add on your AR. You have to drop it because it's an A, right? Drop the E and add an OR. Okay, so now drop the E and add an AR. Uh-oh. Now this is where you get yourself in trouble. Financer. Well, does that say financer? No. Financer. Financer. Because now you've just made this C stop saying S. Okay, so that would be wrong. So this is where you check that. You keep the E and you just do AR. Okay, well let's add an O. Drop the E and add OR. Now what does it say? Financor. Financor. So see, you can't do it. So keep the E and just add on your OR. So this is where your parents need to check your work. All right? Because I've caught many children messing that up. ER is, let's say, fast. You have your fast, and then faster is the second, comparing two things. And then we have the fastest is the most. So those go together. Now we have ist means a person, an means a person. So we can, now this gets confused with est. You need to make sure you're spelling this right. I-S-T means a person, okay? So now this will be fun. A lot of businesses will put an ist on theirs and make up their own word. So you could have a seizurist, someone who has seizures. Drop the E and add your IST. A naturist. Drop the E and add your IST. Now, this is kind of fun. Let's drop our E and add our IST. So right here, well, let's first say someone who works in nature. So the purposist. So purpose. So a purposist would be someone who focuses on a purpose of life or something like that. Whatever, a purpose of something. You wouldn't see that word, but still, it's a person who does the base word. Okay, so now with an, You would see "an" more with countries. For instance, I'm an American. Yeah, I live in America. I'm an American. And so you have the "an" at the end. So that means a person. And you'll have often times when you say I'm an American girl, see how that turned to an adjective is a proper adjective and it stays capitalized. So that's where you'll see this most often is when you are relating it to a country or a people, like Italian. See how it says the "un" on the end? Okay, so now let's go to est, which we talked about. It means the most, and we're gonna drop the E and add your EST, or just add your ST, the pleasest. But that does sound goofy, right? So we are going to focus on, a lot of times when you want the most please, you have to change your verbiage, and it would be pleasant. And you would use the word most. You wouldn't use est. So when you want the most, you have to decide, okay, is that gonna sound better with the est? Or is it going to be better with the most? And this way, it would be most pleasant. She is the most pleasant girl. Okay, you wouldn't say she is the pleasest girl. And you don't do doubles either. You wouldn't say she is the most pleasant girl. Don't do doubles on your most, okay? N means to make, like flatten. You're gonna make it flat. Now, ich and ol are of or pertaining to, like economic. Now this is one where you actually drop the Y. Economy, you drop the Y. Ist is one, eyes is one that you drop your Y. Okay, so now this is a really fun suffix word. Now we have loy means law, and then you would just add on your suffix al. And see, it's pertaining to the law. This is French, okay? Now we're going to use this word above, and we're gonna drop the E and add on your vowel suffix. So you're not gonna be above all the law, right? Okay. Okay, anyways, that will help you actually spell this if you understand that this is French and the OY means law, and you just add on your vowel suffix. Kind of fun. Anyways, ISH means behave like childish, sheepish. That's what you're behaving like. ANCE, very important to spell. You are going to have this in lots and lots of words. For instance, entrance right here. Now this right here isn't a suffix on this word, but you have them on lots of words. So it's super important that you understand the spelling, but this is action or a process of, and you'll put that on. Y means what kind. You'll be what kind. It's funny. What kind? It's acting funny. Okay, so now we have entrance. We're gonna drop the C and drop the E and add our vowel suffix. Entrance-y, right? See, this is, so let's now see, let's do our AL. Entrance-er. So entrunker. You know that that's wrong. Be careful with your C's. Keep the E and add on your vowel suffix if you have a C there, okay? Now, meanwhile, you don't really double compound words, but we are going to practice that. We're going to drop our E, and let's do this vowel suffix. Okay, so now let's look over. We have what kind again, and we're going to talk about how you can add a suffix onto a suffix. We're going to drop our E and add on our vowel suffix. Okay, now we have IC. Okay, so now we're going to add ER. But now here's another spelling rule. You drop the Y, change the Y to I, not drop it. Change the Y to I and add ER, okay? So that is another spelling rule that we'll talk about in another lesson, but you can have suffixes onto suffixes. Now, when you're doing that, you still have to follow the spelling rules on the suffix. With prefixes, you just add them onto each other, but you have to follow the spelling rules. So let's do right here, portably, okay? Now you have to change the Y to I and portablier, right? Now, so now let's go down to ij. Ij means a group or a set, like marriage, you're grouping together. In, made of, or like. For instance, imagine, your base word is image, and you have, this one, determine. This one you wouldn't have, this isn't a base word right here, but I put it down here so you can start practicing adding on to different suffixes. If or I've, sometimes you're going to drop the E right here and add on your vowel suffix. Issuive, that's how that would say. It performs towards an action, okay? So it's going to, like a selective, it's going towards selecting, right? Now, ITE is a person, but this typically goes toward maybe a nationality, kind of like this one does, like Israelite. And you'll see this more in probably scriptures and stuff. Israelite, sodomite, socialite, that's what you have for that, okay? So now, act on is ATE. So we have, see how it's acting upon affection. So now let's practice though. We're gonna add ice, act on to ice. Drop the E and add on your vowel suffix. That says I Kate or I cut. Whatever. Sometimes you just have to play with it because this says it or it says ate. Doesn't matter which one you say it. But this is wrong because you wanted this to stay saying s. So you would have to fix it. You can't drop the E on that one. You just add it on. Okay, now it says I sit. Okay, so, but this one isn't a C or a G, so you drop it and you add ATE. Okay, please it. Okay, now this one, ACE, forms adjectives like grimace. Now let's practice that. We're going to drop the E and add our ACE. Or right here, we'll drop our E and add ACE. Okay, that's what you do with those. Just use those words as sight words. Now we're gonna focus right here up on wife, what we talked about. Now, when you have an FE and you're adding on your plural S, you would change the F to a V and you would have ES, okay? Knife goes to knives. Life goes to lives. Wife, wives. But see, look, this one doesn't have an FE, but you still change the F and add your VES, okay? Same here. This is calf, calves, leaf, leaves. So that's how that works when you're adding on your plural. And I meant to put that up earlier in the lesson. Those are your vowel suffixes on that board, but now we have consonant suffixes. Consonant suffixes are super easy. So we're gonna use the word price, okay? Price. We just add it on. If it's a consonant suffix and you have an E at the end, add it on, okay? So, because look what happens when you drop it. This turns into a closed syllable. This is pickful instead of priceful, okay? So, add it on. Pricely. Price meant. And so on. So now let's just talk about what these mean. Full means full of whatever the base word is. Full of price. ly means how. And you will see most of these are added onto verbs, but not always. So you'll have adjectives with lys, and you have, these become, when they're added onto a verb, they become adverbs that describe how things are happening. So meant means a process of, just add it on. Don't do anything with your E, don't drop it. Just add it on. Without means less, like childless. Qualityness. So make sure you're learning how to spell these. It's super important. So I talked about how you can change a verb to a noun. Now you could also change a descriptive adjective to an abstract noun, the same way as you can a verb. So like for instance, let's pick a color, yellow, the yellow shirt, the yellowness of the sun, okay? The yellow shirt look like the yellowness of the sun. And you know that that's a noun because you have an article in front. You can put an article in front of it and you can tell that it becomes a noun. And an article, remember what the articles are, the, and a. Now you could say as an a or an but most people call it and it is schwa because it's open. But you could also say a because it's also its very own accent too. So, but most people say Anyways, I loved teaching this lesson and I hope you learned a lot. Make sure that you are memorizing all of these and what they mean because it will help you with your spelling. And Paul's given me the thumbs up over here because I'm making him take notes. So anyways, we'll see you in the next video.